Welcome, everybody, to Integrate Yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pelot, and you can find me at pureenergypdx.com. Today, I am here with Kayse Gehret. She is the founder of Microdosing for Healing, a nationwide virtual program combining microdosing education, experience, and a supportive community. In their group programs, they offer a unique, intimate community of individuals drawn to practice with diverse intentions, including physical healing, mental wellness, emotional balance, and spiritual connection. The intention of the program is to introduce individuals to the beautiful practice of microdosing, inspire a lifelong connection to nature, instill a reverence and respect for the medicines, and create the conditions for healing in a fun, welcoming, and supportive container. Kayse, welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Well, let's talk about microdosing because like we were just saying, I believe that not a lot of people they may be familiar with the term, but they don't really know what it is. And I would be included in that because I'm really, not real sure. So, so let's talk about what microdosing is first. I would love to hear about that.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I'd say the majority of people who come to me are pure beginners. They're curious beginners, I would say. So yeah, to begin with, microdosing fundamentally is the sub-perceptual daily dosing or supplementation with sacred plant medicines or fungi medicines, if you will. It is, most people have heard of psilocybin, mushrooms, or ayahuasca, LSD, other psychedelics. Microdosing is quite different in that these are tiny, tiny sub-perceptual doses that we're talking about. So it's you're not feeling special effects, you're not having hallucinations, you're accruing all the benefits of the medicines over time in a really gentle, subtle way so that you can integrate them into your daily life and achieve all of the healing and therapeutic effects without the hallucinations, visualizations, and other special effects.
Wow, that sounds really great. That's right up my alley. I'm not really big into I'm very sensitive to drugs, so I've never gone towards doing a lot of drugs. And so that sounds like something that I would be really interested in. Well, my question is also what got you into this, and if you could share a little more about you. I was looking at your profile, and you have an extensive background in the healing arts. I was very impressed, and so I'd love for you to share more about that with my audience.
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, it's coming up on 25 years now that I've been in the healing arts, and I'm from the East Coast originally. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania and came out to California for college, and very quickly thereafter discovered the healing arts, specifically massage therapy and holistic health. Spent time at Esalen Institute and really just fell in love with the field. And I've studied and practiced many, many different modalities, massage, meditation, yoga, hypnotherapy. And really at this point, I kind of bring all of my skills and backgrounds and experiences into the work that I do now, whether it's at our healing arts studios or one-on-one with clients or in our group microdosing programs.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And I also saw that you worked with Donna Eden as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, great. So you've been doing this for a long time. What got you in, like what sparked your curiosity about the microdosing? How did you get into helping people with that and creating these groups?
Yeah, great question. Well, like you, I'm super, super sensitive. I have a really delicate nervous system. I'm highly intuitive and empathic, but the kind of the flip side and the shadow side of that is just being really, really sensitive to everything, especially drugs and foods and things. So I was, very I would never have done, a mushroom trip or a journey. It would have made me nervous. The thought of it was very overwhelming to me. And then a few years ago, I started to read, some of the books. Michael Pollan's book, among them, was one of the very popular books, and listened to podcasts about microdosing specifically. So microdosing really began, I feel like we need to give credit to, microdosing's been going on for way longer than the past few years in indigenous cultures and original cultures. People have been dieting with plant medicine for many, many centuries and incorporating, they call them dietas. So it's only in more modern times that we have kind of taken the practice and called it, something of our own, which is microdosing. So I started microdosing personally after meeting people that I trusted, who were cultivators, and just had such a remarkable experience. I kind of used myself as my own guinea pig first and foremost, and immediately started, experiencing healing shifts, deep openings with my spiritual practices, immense deepening with my intuition and my connection with nature. And so I practiced for about, I'm going to say 6 months, 9 months before I shared it with anyone else in my world. And then began working one-on-one with people. Up until last November, I put together the group programs and a virtual platform. And I really didn't know, have enough people heard about this? Are people ready to do it in a group setting and kind of share openly about their experience? And so we launched our first pilot groups in January with 2 cohorts of 12 people each. And it was just such an extraordinary experience to be together. So we had people, the age range of our groups was 22 to 72 years of age.
Oh, wow.
From states all over the US. Lots and lots of different backgrounds. We've had, CEOs to comedians to beekeepers to physicians in the groups, really eclectic, all ages. And most beginners, most people were experiencing, especially microdosing for the first time. We have some of the older people in the group, who were like 60s kids and had done journeys in the past, but it was their first time really practicing with intention for a therapeutic and healing motivation. So that's really how it evolved. In part, it was because we were all shut down for so long, and it was kind of, how do we connect together during a time that we can't be in person together? And it was a really beautiful, very vastly different than the experience of working one-on-one with people. To be together in a group. I think we're just starting to kind of tap into the power of the community and the power of the collective in healing together. Everything in Western medicine framework has been so based on the individual.
Good point.
And I think we're moving into a time where we're going to see, there's such a power in being together, dancing together, moving together, healing together is the future of healing.
Yeah, because there's an aspect of that you're not alone, and other people are feeling the same things you're feeling, or a new perspective is always really nice to see, as well, seeing how someone else might view something, and I can see how the group would be very powerful in that situation. Yeah, that's really cool.
And plant medicine is so unique in that it really meets each individual where they're at. And so because people come in with so many different intentions, some people come in for physical healing, some people come in for mental and focus optimization. A lot of people have been having brain fog.
Oh, really?
The stress of the last
I've
year.
Heard about that. Yeah. If and this has been helping people with that.
Yes. There are tremendous physical benefits as well as emotional and mental health benefits, as well as spiritual benefits. So it's beautiful at the beginning because all these diverse people come in with very, very diverse intentions. They're all different, but you get to see each person's path and unique journey. And it's very different than a drug experience. I don't even like calling the medicines, drugs by name, because they're much more of like a spiritual supplement, if you will, that
Yeah.
evolve and deepen over time. And so by watching other people's process, like sometimes people feel benefits right away and they're uplifted and more productive and higher energy and more focus. And then there's other times where we're healing and we're just beginning to feel a little bit more grief that we may have been repressing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just surfacing to put us more in touch with our feeling so that we can release it. And then
Yeah.
there's moments where you're kind of going on for a few weeks and like nothing's happening. And you're like, is this, is anything happening? And those are just integration phases
Times.
where it's kind of like when you change your diet or you change your exercise routine, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
always be on the same plane. You have plateaus, you have peaks, you have valleys,
Yeah.
and that's how we heal. It's no different.
It's really interesting how you're saying this, or what it is bringing up for me is that it is the cycle of life. A lot of what you're describing, it's just that it sounds like the plant medicine is bringing about a heightened sense of awareness that this is happening, and so we can live more with intention and awareness around those cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and the essence, you're really, it's less about the drug like you're saying, and more about the essence of the plant that you're taking in and the connection that you're getting from that, right? So yeah, and you can do that with of course we do like flower essences, or we do essences from a tree. You can do it from trees too, and it's not as noticeable, but it sounds like this is a similar thing where it's giving you a little dose of that connection to nature,
Mm-hmm.
and everything, really connection to everything, and so you're really seeing all the truth of what's really happening around you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, I think the power of plant and mushroom medicine is it really helps you, like you said, get in touch with yourself. You heightens your self-awareness, but also it helps you become more present. And so
Yes.
many of our afflictions are due to not being present. And so
Yes.
when you read about microdosing and psychedelics in the news, which there's more and more and more every day, there's so many research studies being done, there's new books being written. And so you hear about, because it's through the lens of Western medicine, it's all
Right.
curative. So you read about it's great for depression, it's great for anxiety, PTSD, addiction, eating disorders. There's so many things that it's showing tremendous promise for, but really its magic is that its root healing is helping you be more present, and in turn it's lessening the symptoms of those things, which are depression and anxiety. So for
Yeah.
example, like by becoming more present, you're not ruminating on the past. You're not like grinding over the same old
Yeah.
laid tracks, which is when you're in a depressive episode, it's really hard to get out of that loop, right? And
Hmm.
anxiety similarly is kind of always stressing about the future and tripping
Yeah.
out over what may happen, what might happen, what do I do if. And so that's, yes, psilocybin and mushroom medicine helps with cure depression or cure anxiety, but it's really fundamentally healing at the root cause, so that when we do have these more difficult emotions, we have a different relationship to them rather than be overwhelmed by them.
Yeah, absolutely. We can use them as a tool more so than suppressing or pushing away. And uh yeah, because I think that is our natural state. It almost seems like it brings you to your natural state in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we are um it's that like you're saying, the awareness around the present moment, and in my view is, and my perspective is that when we're worrying about the past or the future all the time, that's true suffering. It's like you really can't enjoy your life, right? You can't enjoy what you're doing right now, and if you can't do that, then it's really hard to move forward with your life, and because you're constantly worried about things that either haven't happened yet or happen before, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that's one of the ways we do suffer in our, especially now with all the fear that's going
Mhm.
on. So, so
Right.
this sounds like it's very helpful for people to be able to get, because really, this is a thing that occurred to me too. Of course, everybody probably thinks this as well, but it really hit home. All you do have is now. I mean, if you ever have had somebody in your life that's passed away, that more than anything is that you just have this moment right now, you know, and they could be gone very, very, and no one wants to think about that, but it's true, and so
Mhm.
why not just make the best out of it while you're in the moment? And that's, to me, is true joy for sure. And if that can help you do that, then go, definitely,
Yeah.
I'm all for that. I'm probably going to sign up after I talk to you today. So, okay. So we gave a pretty good explanation of what microdosing is, and um, really who it's for. Maybe if you would want to expand on that, what kind of, so you pretty much, you work with people who are very creative and or who want to tap back into their creativity and connect with themselves again. And sounds like everybody from, like you said, CEOs to people who are musicians and artists. So it sounds like it's pretty much for everybody. There's no limits with that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
mostly what I would want to share with people is that you don't have to have something wrong with you to
Right.
benefit by
Yeah.
this. That's
Yeah.
still, again, the mindset of, I have to be diagnosed with something. And it's like, no, this is absolutely for everyone. It's going to enhance your life in some way.
Hmm.
Whether even if you're fine physically, there are such emotional and spiritual benefits to it. And likewise, sometimes we just get used to how we feel and we don't know that we can feel better. And another magical thing about the medicines is when you start to feel more like yourself and you make choices more aligned with who you are, you just naturally make choices that are more supportive of your overall health, right? So
Yes.
maybe you'll start exercising more, maybe you'll start drinking less alcohol, maybe you'll
Right.
start sleeping more and going to bed earlier. That's what we've seen with people. It's not so much they're intentionally,
Mhm.
efforting to make these habit changes. It's just you feel better. And so you naturally do more of what makes you feel good, which is eating, healthier,
Yeah.
getting more sleep, getting more water. So yeah, it all
That
ties
makes a
together.
lot of sense. Yeah. Because when you feel better, you're going to continue to want to feel better,
Mhm.
and you'll actually have more energy to do the things that keep you healthy as well. So yeah, I like how you bring up you don't need something wrong with you to do this. Because generally when we talk about medicine of any sorts,
Mhm.
that's what we do. And yeah, this could be better than any, I will say, pharmaceutical out there, probably, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
years ago I was dating someone who was sober and was in, the AA program, and I went to a meeting just in support, and I wanted to be supportive and understand what went on, and I left and I was like, why do you have to be an alcoholic to get this support? Like, it was just amazing to
Yeah.
watch their connection and their authenticity and their ability to be vulnerable and honest with each other. It was just beautiful. And I was like, why do we only reserve these groups for, when we're diagnosed with something wrong, or we're going through a
That's a
divorce,
good
or we
question.
experiencing
Yeah.
loss? It's we all deserve this support and level of community. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. That's such a great point. Um, well, what kind of, what are you seeing in these groups? Are you seeing, and you touched upon that a little bit there. Uh, are you seeing people really drastically changing their lives in ways that you didn't think was possible, or they didn't think was possible. Yeah.
Particularly in the groups. Yeah. I mean, it really took me aback right away in the first groups. And that's just continued as we've run subsequent groups, is how quickly it's happening in the group format. And I think there is a special magic that accelerates transformation when you do it in a group. And I think there's a power in sharing your story and sharing your journey, but also witnessing the healing of others is tremendously healing.
Yeah.
And it really surprised me. So I would say on average, after working with people one-on-one, it's about 10 times the rate at which I saw. Like I would work with someone one-on-one about 6 months solo. They would have the shifts and changes that the people in the groups were experiencing in 6 weeks.
Wow.
It was really pretty amazing. And it's ranges. I mean, some people, we always start with intentions, and having an intention versus expectations is really, really important. So I encourage people to have an intention and to tie your intention into your ritual and your microdosing practice, similar to a daily spiritual practice or a meditation practice. But don't have too fixed, rigid expectations, because the medicines have a unique quality of having a 360 view of all of us and our lives and the planet, right? They've been here way longer than we have. They have lived through many, many extinctions. We're humans are kind of the new kids on the block. And so the medicines are always here to serve our highest and best potentials. We get in the way of our own highest and best potentials all the time with our human minds, our thinking minds. And so I really encourage people just to hold your expectations really loosely, because oftentimes the medicines will help you enable, possibilities for your life that you didn't even think you were capable of.
Yeah, they have sometimes a better plan for you than you even knew was possible. Right. Because I think it's just within our I guess our ego, our willpower, we have an idea of how we want things to go, or things to look like, or things to play out. And many times it doesn't go that way. And this can be the disappointment in the moment with things. And then I brought this point up the other day in one of my last episode. It's like we blame it. We use our words where we have these ancestral phrases or words that we use, like Murphy's Law. It's Murphy's Law, Was it really Murphy's Law, or was it just not meant to happen like that?
Right.
So it's just funny how we do this. And so then we just dismiss it altogether and give up.
The time we're kind of moving out of now, fundamentally, we're in the middle of a paradigm shift, I feel right now, where we kind of have a bridge, one foot in the past and one foot in the future right now. We're coming out of this era where it's all about hustling and efforting and muscling through things and willfulness and setting your goal and what you want, and, leading with our minds, and willing things and being very, very self-critical and hard on ourselves. And I feel like we're moving into a time where we're going to be leading with our heart and our spirit and our intuition. And that is more, it's a much more receptive, accepting, open-minded way of living life. And when you lead your life from that place and from that intention, the architecture of your life just takes care of itself in a way. It comes to reflect those intentions versus that willfulness, so you're not going through life fighting.
Right. Yes.
You're flowing through life versus fighting your way through life.
Yeah. It's really about how you're perceiving it. Ultimately, I was reading this book called, I am in the midst of reading this book called, I think it's A Happy Pocket Full of Money, I think is what it's called. And it's really about quantum physics. Have you read that book?
Yeah. No.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds
really
fantastic.
Interesting. The guy is, I think he was part of the movie The Secret, but he gives a much deeper aspect of it and of manifestation. And it's really interesting. He was talking about that very subject. And and it's many times we just kind of let our ego, take over, and we give up on ourselves because we have a certain way of seeing things or a certain perception. And really, it's about letting go of that. It's not to say that you're just going to, not have any intention or any participation at all in it. It's not that at all. It's about, you know, surrendering to some extent to the situation, and you're doing everything, you're doing your best to do what you're there to do and what you need to do to make things happen. But beyond that, what else is there to do? And but instead we really push through things, right? And so it doesn't, it's not, I don't think it's going to work anymore the same way it might have worked before. But like you said, I think there is a shift in how we're going to be able to express ourselves that way. So I think it's there is a way to learn how to manifest. It's just that people haven't really understood exactly how to do it. And circling back to the microdosing, I believe that that's a way for you to learn how to surrender in a more intentional way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's exciting whether it's quantum physics or, energy dynamics and the science. The science is finally just starting to catch up to what shamans have known
Yeah,
for
right.
centuries, what nature already knows. It's all energy um, and systems. And so part of the challenge with microdosing and plant medicine is we're so in our old kind of paradigm and framework that it's kind of beyond our comprehension to have the medicine be not a drug where it's like a cookie cutter the same, and dosage and prescriptive
Right.
and instructional and passive. I take something, it has this X effect on me, and I'm getting it from an authority. Plant medicine, on the other hand, it's co-collaborative. It's a participatory relationship with the medicines
Right.
that's different, where you're bringing yourself, your unique soul, your own intentions to the process. And also it requires your intuition. Your dosage is going to be unique to you. Ultimately your needs will be ultimately to you, and so it requires you be your own authority, and
Wow, that's incredible.
you
Yeah.
are, which is very, very different. And so it's
Yeah.
really uncomfortable. The first 6 weeks, we spend a lot of time talking about healing and the way we heal and the way nature heals. It's a very, very different. It's very nonlinear. It's very unique. It's very diverse in nature versus our old system is cookie cutter sameness.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the steps and you get your result. And it's like, and then we get frustrated because we don't always get the result. Well, we're each unique people. Of course it's different. But it's a really, people, once they get there, it's so freeing. But to get from A to B, to be in your own power and you're in your own sovereignty and really look to your own self and your intuition for the answers, is a
Yes.
really uncomfortable shift for a lot of people at first.
It does seem to be, doesn't it? Yeah, it takes time. I think, especially if you haven't been practicing that, it's a practice just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think some people, we all need a little bit of help. We need tools, to learn how to do this because it's not
Mm-hmm.
been taught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I can, I get asked a lot, like, should anybody, is there anyone who shouldn't do microdosing?
Yeah,
Is a
that's a great
common
question.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so while it is for most people, as we've talked about, um, and it's not that people on pharmaceutical drugs cannot microdose. That's absolutely not the case, but it just requires a little bit more thought and work through, especially that are people who are dependent on pharmaceutical drugs for their mental health.
I'm
So
sure
there
a lot of
is,
people now. Yeah.
yes, I'd
Yeah.
say at over half of the people who apply for our programs are on some kind of pharmaceutical medication. So I have a couple of wonderful pharmacologists that I work with who do
Oh, that's
consultations
great.
for people. Yeah, so we do have experts and scientists, health professionals that can work with people who want to work with plant medicine simultaneous to their drugs if they're working quite well and they want to stay on. Other people really want to over time taper off of their pharmaceutical drugs. And that's very possible. And people have had a lot of success, but it's really important because traditional pharmaceutical meds are quite addictive. They have a long tail, which is very different than plant medicine. So plant medicines, you can start, you go on, you go off, you have no side effects at all.
Right.
They clear from your body really readily and naturally, versus some of the SSRI antidepressants can stay effective to your receptors for 4 to 6 months after.
Oh, wow.
So it's a long adjustment. So that's something I wouldn't want to caution people overly that they can't do it if they're on pharmaceuticals, but it just requires a little bit more patience sometimes.
Yeah, and I am. It's good that you have somebody on staff to help people with that, because I think that's a huge. I mean, it's a great thing to bring up because I'm sure many people have that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I was going to ask you. Are there any side effects at all to the microdosing?
Thankfully, not really that we have seen. I have read that for some people, they're slightly too energizing. And again, it really depends on what substances, what plants or what mushrooms you're using, because each substance will have a different effect than another. So people often ask, well, how do I know, which one will be my medicine? And it's kind of an art. It's your intuition. Certain times people will just will be called to the medicine by their curiosity, or they're like, I keep reading about mushrooms. Like they just keep flashing here and there. And they're like, and then, so in a way you'll know, and you just trust your intuition. Other times people just like experimenting. They might try, ayahuasca will be very different than San Pedro, will be very different than psilocybin, is different than cannabis. So, and everybody will be unique depending on your constitution and kind of where you're at in your life and what you're needing.
Right.
So I specifically work mostly with mushrooms. So
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, that's mushrooms are my jam. I love them. They've been so amazing in my own life. So that's where I practice and focus most. I have many, many friends that work with other medicines. So oftentimes people, when they feel called to move into other medicines, that does happen. And so I have friends and referrals that I can make for those cases. But side effects with mushrooms, I haven't seen. I think that the reports of it being kind of too energizing, they tend to be with other medicines. And LSD, a lot of the microdosing books that are out there are more on LSD microdosing versus the natural, or as we call them, entheogenic medicines are natural psychedelics. So if you hear that word entheogens, that usually means the medicines that were grown by nature, ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote, mushrooms, versus kind of the more lab-made psychedelics, MDMA, LSD, etc.
Oh, very cool. So how does someone go about finding mushroom, or psilocybin in their area? And as well as like, what does the group provide a little bit of a structure around how to do this, or and you have a 6-week course as well, right? So that okay.
Yeah, we have a 6-week intensive program, as well as a 6-month program as well. So sourcing is such an important question and a personal topic, really important to me. So I like to describe cultivation to people. It's very similar to the difference between getting your food, your fruits and veggies from your own garden or from a farmer's market versus like going to a mass supermarket where they're grown thousands and thousands of miles away. Like you can taste and feel the difference, when you eat a strawberry grown in your backyard. It's just, it's night and day. And so the mushrooms and plants are sentient beings. You know, I feel like they're imprinted with their own spiritual wisdom, and it really makes a huge difference if they're grown with intention and love and care, versus as a commodity. So I really strongly believe this. And so cultivation is really important within the course. We have a cultivator that teaches the participants how to grow your own mushrooms.
Oh, wow.
Which is by far, the safest
Mm-hmm.
means right now. The country, Oregon is leading the way, of course, but there's pockets of cities across the country that are decriminalized already,
Oh, that's
for,
great.
for personal use. So while it's
Mm-hmm.
not legal, decriminalized for personal use just means you can safely grow at home for your own use, very small quantities for therapeutic healing or spiritual
Oh,
reasons.
great.
So that's where things are moving. Or like I said, Oregon has been leading the way on a statewide basis. And I really encourage people to cultivate for themselves, not only because it keeps you safe, but it's really special to just like growing your own food, growing your own medicines,
Yes.
that you can share with your family and your loved ones is a really special experience. So that's the ultimate goal, for sourcing.
Very cool. Okay. So, and so it sounds like most states, it's legal to do it for personal use. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
not
No,
yet. Not
not
yet.
yet. Oh, just a few.
That's where we're
Okay.
heading.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be a long road, and we have, cannabis, as an example, there were beautiful things that happened, and there were unfortunate things that happened along the way, but we can see how far cannabis has come,
That's true.
in the last 10 years on a nationwide basis. So, the other, plant medicines are moving along. And so out here in California, there's a statewide ballot moving through California's Congress right now.
Oh, okay.
So we hope to be, somewhere where Oregon is in the next year or so.
It would
Yeah.
make sense that California would do that. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't done it yet, but
Right. Right.
there's a lot of mushrooms being done in California right now,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
used, I should say. um, yeah. Okay. So that's great. So I guess that if someone was in a state that they couldn't, I don't know, that it wasn't legal, I guess they'd
Mhm.
be having,
It's much more difficult. I mean,
yeah.
another instructive path has been with the Native American church. Peyote and
Oh,
San
okay.
Pedro has been used by indigenous peoples for many, many centuries. And they have had to go through all kinds of legal machinations to
Wow.
protect what to them is a very important medicine and fundamental to their lives and their families, and that are now protected by, their church as a sacrament. So throughout the country, there's a lot of churches, that
Oh,
are
yeah.
coming up, and nonprofits too, for people who do want to use medicines personally, intentionally, as a sacrament and for their own healing, to
Wonderful.
protect
Yeah.
people. So that's another. There's like legal campaigns happening, there's decriminalization campaigns happening, and then there's also religious campaigns happening.
Gosh, man, if we had half the country doing mushrooms, what
It would
what do
be
you think would happen?
I often think of that when I watch C-SPAN and our Congress all the time. I mean, it's so much of what we need. I feel like,
Yeah, yeah.
coming out of this pandemic, what we need now is an epidemic of empathy. More than anything else in this country is to really just come together and share our stories and feel more connected again. As a
Yeah.
people, I think that's the biggest. It's there's planetary crises. There's we all have crises and challenge in our individual lives over the past couple of years, but just as a human, family, I feel like we're so divided and disconnected right now. And
Mm.
plant medicines, mushroom medicines, they help remind us of that. We know that, we do know that. We've just forgotten about it with our, mental ways of being. And mushrooms really, again, make you more self-aware, make you feel more connected and just more present. And it impacts your life and the way you live your life and the way you connect with others in such a
Yeah.
beautiful way. It lessens ego. It lessens your need to dominate it, and so when we look at whether it's our government or the way our corporations are run, yeah, I mean, if everybody was doing a little bit of mushrooms, we would have a very different
Yeah.
world. We would have a very different world for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that is very true. So you did send me this last talking point here. Who seems to benefit most from practice versus who experiences challenges? Did we already cover that?
No,
Okay,
but
I
this
didn't
is,
think we did.
yeah. So this has been interesting. And I wouldn't have been able to answer this as clearly if it wasn't for, having so many people move through the groups together. It was really, obvious over the last 6 or 7 months. And so what we noticed is the people who really kind of took to practice and saw the most shifts and benefits right away were the people who are more open-minded, kind of came with a sense of curiosity and flexibility. Many of them had meditation practices and did complementary practices. And so I always tell people, you can do anything you want. Like if you can't sit on a cushion, you're good. Like you don't have to sit on a cushion. Just do what brings you joy and puts you into flow. And for some people that's exercise, some people that's hiking, some people it's gardening. So the more you do that, it's like an ignition for the medicines in the way. So practices, contemplative practices, and just having an open mind and a sense of trust and surrender that helps through the process. Everyone achieves benefits, but for the people that it took, several months of practice before they started to experience benefits and shifts were people that were very rigid, people that were overly structured, very self-critical,
Right.
controlling.
Resistant kind of. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That kind of just go through life. And we all know them. We've all been them at times, is, trying to force and high expectations.
Yes.
Of
I've
ourselves
definitely
and
been
others.
there. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yes. So you're an athlete. You're an athlete.
Oh
Yes,
yeah. Been there many times. Yeah.
yes.
Still go there every once in a while.
Yes, totally. So for them, it's a lot of patience. It requires a lot of trust and a lot of patience in the process and just sticking with it. And then
Yeah.
once things shift for them, it tends to shift in a big way.
That's
But
great.
it's just, there's a sense of they're a harder nut to crack in a little bit
Yeah.
way. So people that are very analytical and structured. So yeah.
Okay. So I have a question from that is because this is what comes up for me personally. I'll just kind of I'll put this in the mix here. Is the fear around drugs and hallucinations and not being in control of something. Because I've heard all these horror stories too, of people, and I've just never been a big drug user. I do smoke pot on occasion. Even when I smoke pot, I still only can do a little bit because what I figure. I'll share this. This is a little bit personal, but I've learned this about myself. I thought it was pretty good. So I realized that when I smoke pot, even if I do a little bit, I lose control of like what I want people, how I want people to see me, and it's like there's that loss of control. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to say something that's gonna, because I can't control what I'm gonna say right now. Or, and so then I have to just sit down and not talk to anybody because I'm afraid
Right.
say something that I'm gonna regret or somebody's gonna get mad at me, so the reason I'm sharing this is because those feelings are like, of course, those feelings that come up for me that I want to that I think people want to see me as that I edit, I edit myself. And I've gotten a lot better at that over the years. It used to be pretty intense, but that's one thing that drug has taught me is that that fear of really just being so uninhibited, because I don't want to look stupid or say something stupid or people think I'm weird. But really, I don't really care if people think I'm weird. It's not even that. It's just that there's just that layer that you're taking off, and you don't really know who that is, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that came up for me, which I was totally comfortable with. I was like, that's pretty cool. I observed that for the first time. Because usually, with drugs, most people just fall into a drug, like you said earlier, and they kind of let it take control over them instead of being the driver a lot of times. And that's what we a lot of times use drugs for, is to disconnect. But I think I'm in this phase of my
Mm-hmm.
life where I'm ready to learn more about what I can see about myself. And so like I don't know anything like I've never experienced. I've done mushrooms, but that was like in college, so it doesn't really count. um so I kind of think I'm at this phase where like I think I can experience. I don't want to go like crazy and do ayahuasca or anything, but I think I could just bring it in small like that, and
Mm-hmm.
experience smaller doses, because I am very sensitive, and I do pick up on things in real life already. I'm picking up on a lot of stuff. So for me to just totally, you know, lose everything in something,
Mm-hmm.
it would be probably that great for me. But I like the idea of microdosing and connecting, and learning about yourself that way, really connecting, because again, it's about our connection with ourself, and this extends out to us seeing ourselves and others, and then that way we can truly connect with other people because we see ourselves in them.
Perfectly said. Yeah, that's absolutely how it is. And it's super valid. I mean, to feel and worry that of losing control and being seen or losing inhibitions. That's why microdosing is so beautiful. A lot of people feel that way coming, because of all the stigma and everything they've read about, and they're not really familiar with the medicines. It's the opposite, actually, of inhibition. You're going to feel much more altered drinking coffee or beer or wine or a gin and tonic than you
Oh,
are
wow. Yeah.
microdosing mushrooms, and so when you start microdosing and it's a sub-perceptual experience and you're still kind of not sure, and people use, it's very common, the first couple of days people have trepidation around it and wonder how they're going to feel. But it's nice in that it's so subtle. You get your confidence under you very, very quickly. And you understand, once you're in relationship with the medicines, that you actually feel more yourself, but you're simultaneously more articulate. You're more
Cool.
clear, you're sharper. And so it's nice to start, at a time where you don't have a lot of responsibility or pressure or need to be on and performing. But very quickly, once you know how you're going to feel when you're microdosing, people actually intentionally schedule the times when they do have to present and be seen when they're microdosing, because it does help you, support you in being who you are. And it's expressing yourself creatively with your communication, written. It enhances all those things, which is quite the opposite of, what we think of with drugs or
Yeah.
alcohol, which is more escapist.
Yes.
You would never, yeah, drink several beers like right before a big test, or,
No,
you
I
know,
wouldn't. Some
or a
people
big
might.
talk. Some people might, right? Which is, it's so
Yeah.
different than, whereas mushrooms, you would absolutely want that support. So it's very, very just an inverse experience in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think you sold me, Kayse. I think
Oh.
you've sold me. So I'm gonna have to try this. Well, very cool. Yeah. So my arm won't melt off, and I won't sit, I heard my friend told me that one time. I was like, great, I will never do that. So that,
Mhm.
yeah. It's,
Well, it's just like
yeah.
everything. A lot of people, that's been their only experience, has been a high dose journey, in
Yeah.
college or recreationally. And, it's challenging. And that's why intention and support is so important to me, because it's not, you can have a mystical experience in nature and a profound, um, And it's fun, it's fun to have those experiences, but if you're taking mushrooms to escape or dilute your experience, you're not going to get it, right?
That's true.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really important to have an intention, and to have support and guidance, because a lot of people, otherwise you risk having that overwhelming experience, or having that experience when you're unprepared, where your plant is talking to you, or your dog is, and then people get fearful around it, and you don't want to do it again, just like when you have one bad experience for your first experience of anything.
Exactly.
It puts you off. So I'm really so happy to be part of, like, the psychedelic and natural medicines are coming back into consciousness in a very different way than they did in the 60s.
It seems like it.
In
Yeah.
the 60s, it was all about countercultural, and now it's about more about the assimilation into our culture.
True integration, right? Is that your dog?
It is.
Aw. Well, thank you, Kayse. This has been amazing. I've just really loved learning about microdosing. And I just feel like it's probably, I'm so much more familiar with it now. I didn't even know that. I didn't know how familiar I was with it. So this is great. I feel like I've known it all my life almost from talking to you. So I'll have to go, I'll dive deeper into this. Please leave my listeners with your offerings, the things that you're offering right now. If you want to share more detail about the group and how that works, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome.
Really appreciate sharing with new folks. And yeah, so we offer our 6-week intensive is probably our most supportive offering. So with that, we meet weekly over Zoom. It's 6 weeks. We have a lot of beginners with us, so all are welcome. And those run on specific cycles throughout the years. So they're a closed container. And then we also have an ongoing 6-month program that is similar. It's just more spread out for people who can't participate in such a fixed structure. So the best way to check out what we're doing is at our website at microdosingforhealing.com. And there's lots of information about the programs. There's some videos. I have a video of frequently asked questions. That's a half-hour video of kind of the questions that most people ask. And then there's an application on the apply page, and that covers every one of the programs and the one-on-one work as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was amazing. And yeah, I would highly recommend everybody go check that out and get curious about and this is such a great time for this too. I can't think of better timing, right? Perfect timing. But yeah, thank you, Kayse. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.